New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guided selling from RingDNA makes your entire sales team more effective by revealing exactly what reps should do and when to do it. Guided selling works by transforming sales data into a curated list of prioritized sales actions. So when reps start their day, they'll never again wonder which prospects and accounts or hot inbound leads to reach out to next. Guided selling even shifts reps' priority in response to real-time buying signals. Finally, even new reps can sell like seasoned ones. Let RingDNA be your guide to success. Learn more at ringdna.com/guided selling. That's ringdna.com/guided selling.
It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 733. That is 733 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. We have another great episode on tap for you today. On this week's Accelerate, my guest is Bill Bice. Bill is the CEO of Boomtime, a digital marketing agency. And in this week's episode, Bill and I will be talking about how to harness word-of-mouth marketing to create your own sales boom. So in our conversation today, Bill and I dive into how to bring scale and efficiency to your marketing, how to leverage word-of-mouth in your lead generation efforts, how to capture and nurture the leads that are already coming into your business, how to use challenger sale methods to create great content, and how to drive the customer experience on your website. All that and much, much more. Now, before we get to Bill, I want to talk to you a minute about VanillaSoft. VanillaSoft is the industry's leading sales engagement platform, but most people simply refer to it as the solution. It's the solution to ensure sales development reps make the right number of attempts for every lead. It's the solution to ensure sales development reps use more than just email, that they consistently use LinkedIn and perhaps even the dreaded telephone as part of their sales playbook. It's the solution to serve the sales development rep the next best lead over and over again so they hit their numbers. The solution starts with the right sales cadence, and that's why you need to check out VanillaSoft's guide on sales cadences. You can get your copy. It's titled Sales Cadences, What Works, What Doesn't, and Why You're Frustrated. And you can get your copy now at vanillasoft.com/Andy Paul. That is at vanillasoft.com/Andy Paul. Okay, let's jump into it today. Bill, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, a pleasure to have you on. So for folks who aren't familiar with your company, Boomtime, so tell us what you do.
Well, so Boomtime is all about bringing scale and efficiency to marketing, which I think is the thing that the discipline of marketing has done a really good job of avoiding for a long time. and so we do marketing as a service, and our whole approach is to bring technology and the expertise for how to implement it and put it to work together, because a lot of companies don't really have the desire or bandwidth to implement all of the stuff that you really need in order to do marketing in a consistent and effective way. So we just produce the end result and deliver that to our clients. And the thing that's so much fun about that is we learn so much in doing that, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's all about the data. And so we get to see the data across hundreds of clients. And so we just, we see things so much more quickly by aggregating all that together and seeing that across a whole group of businesses with similar goals.
Interesting. Different business types then. So you can I think that's sort of interesting. See if you could normalize data across various industries. That to me would be of interest.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we've really specialized in the sort of B2B and professional services area is because we found that essentially the same strategies and tactics work across a lot of different industries, as long as we're talking about things that are, a high value, impactful kind of sale. Mm-hmm. Same approach works, and so being able to leverage that across all those different markets and cross-pollinate those experiences has been a lot of fun.
So you focus primarily on small business, it sounds like, and what was the impetus to start this company? What was your background?
It was my frustration with getting marketing for all of my companies. So, I feel like I was born an entrepreneur. I started a software company when I was 18. I had no idea what I was doing, so it took me a long time to grow that company. But we, eventually became number one in our niche. And I've gone on to found or invest in a number of companies with a lot of B2B focus. And, amazingly, there's this really strong correlation to the cases where we really focused on go-to-market and nailed it to the level of success that we had. Mm-hmm. And so you do all this hard work to create a great product or service. How good you are at marketing really determines whether you get the payoff or not.
Yes.
And if you're spending your own money on marketing, you really want it. You want a real ROI there. So I found it a really interesting problem to go after.
And so you've been doing this how long?
For 6 years in this focus of what we're doing.
And so take us through an average sort of customer experience with this. I mean, so they come to you, they say a small business, professional services provider, and say, yeah, we need help. What's it look like then for them?
So what I really want is a client. I mean, one of my first questions is almost always when I'm sitting down with the CEO, the business owner, I'll say, okay, where'd your last couple of clients come from? And what I'm looking for is, it was a referral from, because that's the kind of business where the approach that we take is amazingly effective. I mean, we talk about word of mouth marketing.
Right.
It's one form of marketing that just absolutely works. And in this day and age, we have this amazing ability to really amplify the effect of word of mouth. And so that's what we're focused on. So we start by sitting down with a client, and we have a very structured interview process to dive in, really understand their business. And the way I look at it is they've already done all the really hard work, right? They're taking care of their clients. Now we get to do the really easy part, which is leverage that in order for more people to understand the great work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so in the end, it's really a content-driven approach to marketing. It's it's things that you've certainly spent a lot of time talking about, but it's really positioning that CEO and their business as thought leaders and building the foundation of their marketing. So over and over again, we run into the same set of issues. Like if we do three things better, if we are better at capturing the referrals and leads that are already coming in, and if we're better at following up on those leads, and then if we're better at staying top of mind with this now larger audience that we're growing. So what we're doing is just building that marketing foundation for business after business to do those things really well. And it's just, it's essentially battling the salespeople are human. And so like if you don't see a commission check in the next 60 to 90 days, that lead doesn't tend to get followed up on.
Right.
But if we build it into our process and put marketing automation in place and make sure that we're following up on everybody, really good things happen.
Yeah, I imagine though a lot of the companies that you're working with have small sales teams, right?
Yeah, it's typically 2 to 10 sales reps.
Yeah, I imagine they would appreciate that sort of support.
And it's, some of it's battling just I'm a big fan of CRMs, but CRMs have long been built the wrong way, right? They're for sales managers, not for salespeople. Right. We all face this battle. I mean, we're in the business of doing this, and I have a tough time getting our sales team to use our CRM system. But yet the magic that happens if you actually capture everybody who's in your audience, every client, every prospective client, you get them into that central database, and then you do the really hard part, which, 90% of the effort should be around coming up with really great content. Mm-hmm. insight-driven, new perspective that you're bringing. The number one mistake in marketing is talking about yourself.
Right.
And so if we just stop doing that, if we focus on the challenges that our audience has and we put our effort into creating really great content, and then we just get these functional pieces in place so that we're capturing our leads and staying in front of everybody, most businesses, the growth they want is just sitting right there. But we have to put all this process into place in order to really make it work well.
Got it. Well, you started alluding to something that I know is important to you, and you talk a lot about on your podcast, and which is the challenger sale. So, you seem quite taken with it. So, why is that?
Well, I really like the approach, and in the end, the challenger sale is just an insight-driven approach to selling, and the bottom line is creating this experience where every prospective client that you sit down with is better off because they met you. Whether they ever buy anything from you or not,
exactly,
they're in a better place because what you're doing is leveraging your experience across working with hundreds or thousands of businesses like that one prospect. That allows you to bring insight and perspective to them that they're running their own company, but they're running their own company. Mm-hmm. And you have this perspective across the whole industry. So if you leverage that and bring it to the table, it's amazingly effective. And so what you see, all the research for the challenger sale was done in Fortune 500 companies, but we've seen a tremendous amount of success taking those same techniques and applying it to the small sales teams that we're talking about. And one of the stats that comes out of their research that is just so compelling is that the best performing sales reps spend a third of their time building their own marketing material.
Right.
Imagine if the company, who's in a much better place to actually do that than one individual sales rep is, no matter how good they are. Imagine you took the combined experience of your whole sales team and your client services operation and you use that to create this insight-driven marketing material. Now your best sales reps suddenly have a third more time to sell, and you're empowering your other sales reps to do a better job of taking that same approach that is so much more effective.
Yeah, I'm more of a skeptic on that whole thing. I think that I saw the stat similar, which was actually reps spend 35% of their time modifying marketing materials. But I don't think you give them an extra 30% of the time. For decades, they've only spent a third of their time selling. And I don't think that's ever going to change. But to your second point, which is, let's make them more effective in that time they have that they are selling. And to the other point you brought, which is relevant to the challenger, which is, be much more focused on what the buyer's experience is working with you during that time, as opposed to making it about yourself.
Yeah, buyers are coming to the table so much more educated now, and they have access to so much resources and information. I think the question you really have to ask yourself in running your own business is, are you going to be part of that education process, or are you going to allow your prospective clients to be learning from everywhere else? And really the only way you can create new sales opportunities is to become part of that process. And if all you want to do is take orders, that's fine. But if you really want to drive your business and drive the sales process, then I think you have to get into the business of educating your audience and driving insight and perspective to them.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to say it's a new wrinkle, but I think we're going to hear more about it because Gartner's latest rev of research is coming out here next week, actually, at their conference in Las Vegas, which, just FYI, people listening to this, it will have been long gone by the time we hear this, is they're talking about the necessity for salespeople to help buyers now. Yes, they have access to information, but now we need to help them make sense of it. And I think that's that next level of insight really is you've got a lot of information. They're not necessarily confused. I think this whole confusion and overwhelm idea with buyers is overdone. We're smart people. There's been a book written by some professors at Stanford talk about their research says, people aren't overwhelmed by data, but they do want somebody to help them make sense of what they've learned. And I think that really becomes an important part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you just see it in the more your sales team is seen as consultants, the more word of mouth is going to work for you. And you take every prospect you talk to, even someone you don't sell becomes a referral source for you because you gave them value in that sales process.
Well, do you think we sort of, again, hate to overuse my term of the word overdone, but do you think we overdo this whole idea of salespeople being consultants? Because, I think they even talk about in the challenger sales, it's more about, I see it more as leadership, really. They talk about leading the buyer to a solution. And I've always thought that same thing, is that, as an individual seller, you're fundamentally in a leadership position. Because if you look at the responsibilities of leaders, one of the things they do is they enroll people behind a vision. They inspire people to take action, and these are things that leaders do. And I wonder, is it really a consultant, or is it really leadership?
I think it almost depends on the salesperson you're talking to in terms of what's the right way to give them a different way to look at what they do so that they move in the right direction. So if you have somebody who's really good at the relationship and really good at the sales technique side, they need to add that consultative approach to what they do in order to really leverage the strengths that they have. Then you can have somebody who truly is a consultant and therefore is not that good of a salesperson, and they really need the sales skills in order to be able to bring those things together. So it's you got to put all of those pieces together to really be truly effective as particularly for B2B sales, where the level of knowledge and experience can be very high in these kind of impactful transactions.
Yeah, well, a question I'm sort of interested in your perspective on is this idea about, because again, back to challenger sale, they talk somewhat disparagingly about what they can classify as relationship sellers. And I think, quite honestly, they completely misunderstand what a relationship means in sales. I'm just sort of interested in what your take on that was.
Yeah, I think they're wrong about that in the overall picture of how you just read it. I think the piece that they have right is that when you talk about a very traditional relationship only driven salesperson, they're not going to be as effective. That's really the point they're trying to make, but they don't do it very clearly. Because by far the most successful salesperson is someone who is really good at building relationships and leveraging them. It's just, that's not the only thing you can rely on. You've got to bring all these other pieces to the table. But would you rather have somebody who is only good at understanding your business and isn't able to build the relationship? I mean, obviously you're going to do better if you put both of those together.
No matter where your sales team is working from, RingDNA can enable them to be more productive and effective. RingDNA offers a complete platform for remote sales teams that gives reps the tools they need to connect with more prospects and create more opportunities and drive more revenue no matter where they're working from. And managers can get real-time insight they need to coach reps to success. Win more deals from anywhere on the planet with RingDNA. Learn more about how RingDNA helps remote teams at ringdna.com/remote work. That's ringdna.com/remote work.
New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast. And I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, well, I agree. And I think where the misunderstanding comes, and I've been thinking a lot about this recently because there's a lot written online these days about people, again, denigrating this whole idea of relationships and sales and, want respect, I want a relationship, yada, which I, again, don't get me started on that one. is I think to be able to execute a challenge or sale, you need to have a certain type of relationship with the buyer, right? You have to have trust, you have to have credibility, have to have some acumen. It sort of leads back to trust. So I started looking at the construct of when Adam Grant in his books talks about the difference between givers and takers. Is I think that if you're that superficial relationship person, that, the hail fellow, well met stereotype, used car salesperson, you're a taker, right? You really don't have anything to give. You're just taking some of their time, some of their energy, but at the end of the day, you've got nothing to give that really helps them. But if you're a giving relationship person, then you have value for the buyer, and it affects that buying experience. And so I think people get on their high horse about relationships. It's like there's still, and I think even unfortunately Kevin and Brent sort of fell into that trap a little bit with the book, is that it's not about friendships. I mean, for order to me to be a real value provider to you, you need to trust me. You need to be enrolled in this vision I'm creating. And if you're not, when we don't have that relationship, that's not going to happen.
You can't sell without relationships. So I think I think they're making a good point, but did it in a way that it doesn't really come across. And so it's just that you can't be successful today just relying on going to lunch and playing golf. You really have to bring value to the relationship. That's what they're trying to say. I just don't think it comes across very clearly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love The Challenger Customer. I think that's a better book in my estimation. I love The Challenger Customer. And they talk about, I think they reframe it, they talk about the more from the customer perspective, as salespeople get sucked into the customers that will talk to anyone. Well, that's who those sort of superficial relationship people on the sales side, that's who they get drawn to, right? Those are like magnets. I get some on the customer side that will talk, and I'm comfortable because they're not challenging me at all. And I think that's where a lot of this, like I said, the stereotype comes in.
I think that's a great insight. And what I've seen work really well is taking that challenger sale approach and applying it to the general marketing message that you're pushing out to your audience. So do that same thing. Challenge your audience. Say things that are actually interesting, somewhat controversial, because that's how you get attention to what makes your solution unique.
I agree. I mean, I think we gravitate to all being the same.
We do, and so many small businesses, they see, well, what I need to do to compete against these much larger companies is I need to look corporate. I need to look like them. And I have exactly the opposite argument, which is the main benefit you have, your competitive advantage, is to put a face on the business. There's real people standing behind your solution. So take full advantage of that. It's the second thing that should be on your website. The first thing is what do you do? Mm-hmm. The second thing is who are you? And when you look at B2B websites, the second most visited page after the homepage is always the About Us page.
It's always what?
It's always the About Us page.
Oh, I thought it was price.
No, you don't get to price until they understand who you are, because they don't care about whether they would ever do business with you without understanding who you are. Your large competitor doesn't have to do that because they're sort of overshadowing the market with presence and brand. Your advantage is that you're real. And so put that right at the front of the story that you are telling, and then make sure that you're really controlling that customer journey. Because the other thing you'll see is you'll go to the About Us page and you'll scroll down to the bottom. So one, it'll be really boring bios as opposed to something that really sells you on that team's passion for why they do this.
Right.
And then you'll get to the bottom of the page and there'll be nothing there. It'll be up to your prospective client to go figure out, here's what I ought to go look at next.
Right.
Why not control that customer journey and tell the story exactly the way you want to tell it?
Right. So a question for you, because you build a lot of websites as part of your business. Seems like from visiting your site, is part of the sort of sameness that we see across so many companies in their marketing. How much of that is driven by SEO and the fact that people want to track to certain keywords, and if they're trying to say, look, I want to be different, right? I want to have this unique positioning, but no one looks for the keywords for it. So I got to sort of be like them, and they sort of end up straddling, and which doesn't seem like it's very successful.
Well, it's not. And competing for the same keywords that are what your large competitors are already successful with, as a small company, you really have zero chance of being in the game. So it makes no sense to do that anyway. And SEO has so dramatically changed over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, the vast majority of what's sold to small businesses SEO is, there are good SEO companies out there, but it's hard not to just say most of it's a scam, because SEO has changed so dramatically.
Right.
Anybody who claims that, it's not possible to guarantee that you're going to be number one on Google for anything.
Right.
Anybody who's doing off-site SEO work, who's not charging you at least $2 or $3 grand a month, isn't doing any real work. So it's really easy to filter out whether they're putting real effort into this or not, because there is no several $100 thing that's going to do off-site SEO in a successful way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the negative part of SEO. The positive thing is that it has changed in a way that's really beneficial to us from a small business side, because we don't have to live in these two worlds anymore, where we're writing for robots on one side and then maybe paying attention to the actual people we want to sell on the other side. Google has gotten so good now that they're evaluating your website like a human does. So we can give up a lot of those games and really just focus on what's the best message that provides really valuable content to our best prospects. The reason Google gives away Google Analytics is because the data they get from that is invaluable.
Right.
If somebody comes to your website and finds what they're looking for and spends time on your website, your SEO just went up. If they come to your website because you gamed them into getting there with keyword strategy that just happened to get them there, but then they immediately hit the back button, your SEO just went down.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually in a much better world, particularly for small business and SEO, because you don't have to play all those same games that honestly did work 10, 15 years ago, but they're really negative at this point.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's a big industry, but it's a big thing, especially for small business.
And then the best way to be successful at SEO is actually, we can tie all these things together, because if we have a steady flow of really great content, and so you're putting a couple of new longer form articles on your website every month in and month out forever, that's great for SEO. And that same content is exactly what we're going to email to people, what we're going to post on LinkedIn, how we're going to stay in front of our audience. So we can take one core strategy and cover all of these channels.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I want to talk about LinkedIn, because this is, I know, something that you've talked about that you have used to build your business. And most people who listen to the show are spend time on LinkedIn. What's done it for you? What's the strategies that have really worked for you on LinkedIn?
So the analogy I love for LinkedIn is that it's the ideal networking event. I get to invite just the people I want to meet there. And I don't have to eat high calorie food while I'm there.
High calorie bad food, yeah.
Exactly. There's no good side to that. And I think you have to take the same exact attitude, right? You're not going to walk into a cocktail party, meet somebody new, and immediately start giving them a sales pitch unless they actually ask you for it. And that's
unfortunately, a lot of people do. But yeah, go ahead.
Well,
yeah.
It doesn't work, right? So
we know it doesn't work.
An experience, and you're immediately finding a reason to go get another drink. And what works in that environment is also what works in LinkedIn. So you have to go into LinkedIn with the idea that I'm here to grow my network, because I want to give. I want to give to my network. That's what creates sales opportunities. We all get the connection requests that are just veiled sales pitches. It doesn't work anymore. So if you go into LinkedIn, you can run a really aggressive connection campaign, but you've got to put the time into connecting with the people that really make sense, that you really can bring value to. And then if you take the same challenger concepts and apply it to that, and you get a steady stream of content that's really insightful and helpful to your audience, then they're going to come to you, and it's going to create sales opportunities. It's just, that work is hard to do. It takes consistency day in and day out. So if you're an individual sales rep and or a solopreneur and you're going to run this for yourself, then I think you treat it like the golden hour of prospecting. You say, 8 to 9 a.m., I'm going to spend on LinkedIn every single day, and I'm going to send out 30, 40, 50 connection requests a day. I'm going to spend a lot of time in Sales Navigator really nailing the queries and getting to exactly the right prospects that make sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put out, my goal anytime I'm running a connection campaign for somebody on LinkedIn is to have 4 to 6 activities a week that's now keeping you in front of that larger audience that you're creating.
4 to 6 activities, meaning posts and articles?
Post a comment on a post that you just made. I mean, one of the great things about LinkedIn is it doesn't have the duplicate content issues that it does. So our idea of creating 2 longer form pieces of content a month, we can use that multiple times on LinkedIn, write one article and then post it 3 or 4 times, pulling different pull quotes out of that one article.
Right.
We can get a lot more depth out of that content. The algorithm in LinkedIn is so much easier to understand what's happening compared to Facebook. So right now, as we are talking, this may change by the time this comes out, but right this second, you want to make posts on LinkedIn that are not links, because you will get twice the twice the distribution in the feed of your audience just by taking the link and putting it in the
comments. Right.
And so the data is just really, really clear on that. The click-through rate is just slightly less, but because you're getting twice the exposure, the overall result is much higher. And so whatever amount of time you're spending on LinkedIn, you ought to be spending more today, because the value is just incredible.
Yeah, and I know, especially in small business, that this is often overlooked, right? We did much more not rigid, but stringent programs. At larger enterprises, they train their sellers how to use LinkedIn and Navigator and so on. But like everything in smaller businesses, it's less well organized sales processes, lead gen opportunities, and so on, which is obviously an opportunity for you. So how do you work with those sales teams then, or do you, as part of what your services you offer, to help them become more proficient, so they spend those golden hours?
Well, I actually think the most effective way is to have dedicated resources behind running these campaigns. Of course, that's what we're in the business of doing. But even if you want to do it yourself, you need to have an assistant in the company that this is what they do. You're comfortable with that person having access to your profile. They're sending out those connection requests. They're staying on top of the conversations that are getting created. I mean, the problem with creating all this activity is it's a good problem, but it creates conversations. Mm-hmm. That only works if you stay on top of it and actually respond.
Right.
And the profiles that work the best are the executive team. So I always want to start with the CEO, the COO, the CTO, whatever the right contacts are for them in the prospective clients that we're going after, the VP of sales. Use that, because we're going to create more sales opportunity for our sales team by leveraging the CEO's profile. Mm-hmm. Once we're doing that and we're putting out really great content and we're really understanding the engagement we're creating, then we get to the sales team. But frankly, we want to start with the executive team first, because we're just going to get better results from that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's we're sort of at this, you sort of talked about it, this inflection point, it feels like, with LinkedIn, where just in the last year, there's been the tidal wave and tsunami of fake connection requests with, as you said, veiled sales pitches. Do you see LinkedIn doing something about that? Is there anything they can do? Because I think this is, at least in circles that I will talk to people, and these people are pretty engaged in LinkedIn, a lot of sort of fading enthusiasm for it.
Well, LinkedIn has, as you know, they've really clamped down on the automation tools that have enabled a lot of that.
Right.
If you do it well, it works extremely well. There's definitely the risk that the people who abuse the system are going to push it too far. But right this second, in terms of the results that we see, it's extremely effective, and you're losing out if you're not putting that effort into LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And the more people who come in with the right attitude for how to leverage LinkedIn, the more benefit that we're
right.
all going. And what we're really, our goal is to get to this point where we start to really get organic growth out of, get to that point where you have enough followers where you can switch to having a follow button instead of a connect button, and people coming and just following you on LinkedIn because of the value of the insight that you're providing.
Right.
That is our goal.
Yeah.
And it works so much better at the individual level than we want a company page, we want to post content on it, but all the results come from the individual profiles. We want to connect with real people on LinkedIn.
Right. Yes, as we do in real life in sales, which is, again, I think we're having this inflection point in sales as well with all the sales engagement platforms and everything out there, that we're going through this period where they're not being used, to my way of thinking, they're not being used authentically for the most part, and they're we're amplifying bad behavior, basically. But that will change. I'm convinced it's changed. That will change. I'm not sure what's going to drive it, but optimistic in that regard.
Yeah, Facebook is horribly abused, and yet everybody's still using, everybody over 30 is still using Facebook. So I don't think it's going to change the value that we get out of LinkedIn, because there's the network effect is so powerful that it becomes those challenges that just come along for the ride no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. Unless something else comes up. That's I think just like Facebook. They are so huge, but at the same time, I remember at the start of my career, selling computers, IBM had almost 90% of the market. And it seemed like that was never going to change. And within 10 years, it changed pretty substantially. So,
we're operating in a market that's really unique because we have a winner takes all, but yet that winner changes every 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's a
great way to put it.
In the dynamics.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. All right, well, Bill, it's been fascinating. I'd love to keep on going, but we've run out of time. So tell folks how they can find out more about Boomtime and connect with you.
Yeah, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Come to our site, boomtime.com. Look me up on LinkedIn. You will see us demonstrating exactly what we recommend that you do for your business. I want as many businesses to do this as possible. You can. I'm following in your footsteps. Finally, I've started my own podcast, B2B word of mouth marketing podcast.
Episode 11, I saw. Congratulations.
Yes.
Well, because the average number of podcast episodes produced before someone quits is 7, so you've beat the average.
We are still going strong.
Excellent.
And my goal is just to lay out the things we've learned, because I just love small business. I want as many small businesses to be doing the things that really work for marketing as possible. You got to make the commitment and do it. I love talking to business owners about marketing. I'm at CEO at Boomtime.com. So please reach out if you want to talk about your marketing.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Well, Bill, thank you very much. And everyone else, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay, friends, that was my guest, Bill Bice. Join me again next week, as my guest will be Sean Shepard, coming back for a repeat visit. Sean is founder and CEO of GrowthX, a Silicon Valley venture capital partnership with an accelerator focused on sales, as well as an academy that trains people in sales, marketing, design thinking, and data science. And we're going to be talking about a little bit different concept. You're familiar with the term first mover advantage? Well, we're going to be talking about what Sean calls lasting mover advantage and how that can impact your business. So be sure to join us then. And before you go, don't forget to check out the Sales House. The Sales House is my own growth training platform for B2B sellers just like you. If you're a seller who's reached the limits of what the science, quote unquote, science of selling can do for you, and you're interested in learning about the art of winning, then come check out the Sales House. You'll learn how to master the human element of selling to crush your numbers. So for more information, visit thesaleshouse.com. That is thesaleshouse.com. Okay, thanks again for joining me. Until next week, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
RingDNA is the leading sales enablement platform that uses AI to help scale business growth. Trusted by the top companies across the globe, RingDNA offers a suite of powerful tools for every sales role. The RingDNA Dialer radically improves sales productivity and call connection rates, while guided selling helps reps know exactly what to do and when to do it. Conversation AI uses artificial intelligence to surface the most impactful coaching opportunities in real time. So, no matter where your team is working from, the RingDNA platform can help them exponentially increase call connections, opportunities, and revenue. Learn more at ringdna.com/platform. That's ringdna.com/platform.